We will be starting with Dr. Alessandra Tassa from the European Space Agency. She is an Earth Observation Technical Officer at ESA, which assesses the social impacts of the space missions. She has 15 years of experience and a PhD in remote sensing engineering, and she has worked in the ground segment development and satellite meteorology. And recently, she has been focusing on improving the use of the ESA Europe Earth observation data. Just for all our panelists, I would like you to stick to 10 minutes of presentation, so we have to be able to have like the 30 minutes of a roundtable in the end, and to answer all the questions maybe from my side and from our guests. And I would like also to ask all our guests to keep on being on mute, so it's easier for our panelists to speak and to be hearable. And I would like to let the floor to Dr. Alessandra Tassa for her presentation. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Imane. I'm really thrilled to be here and to get to know this community, which I was not really aware of. And I'll try to share immediately my presentation and stick to the 10 minutes. Indeed, I am an engineer by background, but in the last years, I have been focusing my interest in the European Space Agency to inform the agency with the benefits, the impacts of using that the users are having from using our data. And I will try to provide you an overview, and I tried also to interact with some colleagues to prepare these slides. I hope you can see them fully in
Yes.
presentation mode.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. So to begin with, I must recall what the European Space Agency is. We are an intergovernmental organization made of 22 member states, European member states, plus some cooperating countries. And our mission is to make space for Europe, which means that our activities encompass almost all activities in space. And specifically myself, I'm from the Earth Observation Programs Directorate. In the program, in the directorate, one of the main programs on which we work is the Copernicus program, in which we do in close cooperation with the European Commission on behalf of the European Union. And I guess that the audience is already aware with Copernicus, so I will not go in details about the program. I tried to put all the links in the slides. I think I made maybe too many slides, but in order to stick to the 10 minutes, I will try to go very quickly through the slides, and I suppose that afterwards the slides can be distributed to the audience, and I put some links there, so in case you want additional details, there will be the possibility to navigate to them, or you can email me. So I will not go to the details of Copernicus, formerly known as GMES, but let me highlight that the European Space Agency within the program is specifically responsible for the space component, and which is made of a dedicated space asset with, that are the Sentinels, plus the coordination of the contributing missions. For the Sentinels, here you have an overview of all the satellites that embark different technologies and have different objectives. But I just highlight a few points that for me make really the fact that Copernicus represented a quantum leap for Earth observation in Europe and probably also worldwide. So we are talking about state-of-the-art observations that systematically make the data available to the users under a full, free, and open data policy. Also very important is that these data are made available for the long term. And in fact, at the agency, we are already working on developing the next generation of the Sentinel missions, and the recurrent units are already ready to be launched to replace the obsolete one or the ones for which there were issues like the Sentinel-1B satellite. We are also working on expanding the family with the so-called expansion missions that you see there. They are meant to complement the Sentinel satellites. And I will not go to the details again, but just will highlight the first one to be launched, which you find at the bottom left of the slide, and which is meant to provide Copernicus anthropogenic carbon dioxide emission estimates and as from 2026. And this will be fundamental to allow monitoring of the agreements taken under the Paris Agreement or the carbon neutrality goals. I suppose that the audience already knows about all the many different applications that are supported by Earth observation. Besides developing and operating some of the satellites, at the ESA, we also undertake many projects that are meant to support the exploitation of the data. And I will, again, I will not go in details. I will just pick a few examples related to applications of Earth observation data in specifically in Africa. This one, I took it from UCMA, which is the River Basin Authority in charge of water management for the Nkomati-Usutu River Basin in South Africa. And I thank UCMA for providing a presentation on how they are using Sentinel-derived applications in support of their decision-making. Then we also have different projects, and I will also tell in a minute that also include some national incubators in Africa. Here you see an example of indicators about crop condition and cropping systems derived also from Sentinel data, but also from other data sources in Kenya. And last but not least, examples of applications of mapping and damage assessments derived from satellite data in the aftermath of disasters in Africa from the two separate initiatives. One is the Disaster Charter and the other is the Copernicus Emergency Management Service. These are the rapid mapping is generally triggered by the application, by the request from authorized users, but there are also early warning systems that you can find, for instance, for the Emergency Copernicus Service that also cover Africa. I also want to recall the global mandate, the global mission of Earth observations that really is a fundamental tool to understand the impacts of climate change worldwide, and is a fundamental help to address the challenge represented for all communities worldwide by climate change. I also wanted to propose to present some concrete elements. So here you find a snapshot of the new browser replacing the former distribution system for the Sentinels, the data space, which provides also capabilities to have on-the-fly parameters, some on-the-fly parameters, and also cloud computing environments that could alleviate the problems related to access from some African countries whenever there is connectivity problems. A new project, a new initiative led by the European Commission, which is called Destination Earth, and ESA is contributing to this initiative by deploying and operating a platform which will allow the access to the digital twins of the planet with unprecedented spatial resolution. Also, I hope the community is aware about the Dunia project, which represents really an initiative targeted to ease the access to data and to specific data sets over Africa. And there's also a privileged usage quota specifically for Africa. And also the EU Africa initiative, which fosters an African-European R&D partnership. And here I invite the community to join the EU Africa community to have access to training material, MOOCs, and example use cases, and also learn about positions for African research fellows. I think we have 3 now in Esri. They are all male, but in the past we had also African women. And also on the same activity website, you can learn about current opportunities. And there is this very recent one. In fact, it opened 2 days ago. And the call is open to submit projects from partners of African and European scientists. And the deadline for submissions is in September. So the call is open if you want to join and submit proposals. And then take-home messages. I think we can all agree that Earth observation missions provide consistent, regular, and quality information at global scale. And this data, if appropriately exploited, brings huge benefits to society. And specifically, we can use EO to support mitigation and risk prevention actions related to the impacts of climate change. And I understand that these climate change impacts can really disproportionately affect women in Africa. And ESA actively engages with African partners in activities that can help to advance capabilities and stimulate the exploitation of EO data. And we are certainly open to discuss about possible initiatives and cooperations where we can improve this exploitation. And that's all for me. If you have any questions, don't hesitate.
Thank you, Alessandra. You stick to the time. We're 10 minutes sharp. For the questions, we can have them in the end during the roundtable. So now we will be moving to Viola Otieno from the African Union Commission. She's an Earth observation scientist specializing in disaster risk assessment and early warning. She has over 10 years of experience, and she has been leading the continental drought monitoring and was the first president of Women in GMES in Africa. She is dedicated to democratizing space and the use of Earth observation for informed decision-making. And please, Viola, could you please share your presentation and go ahead for your 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Imane. Let me share my screen.
Of course.
Allow me to also turn my camera off. I'm in Addis Ababa and the internet is not very strong, so I will do the presentation with the camera turned off, and then afterwards I can turn it back on. Please confirm that you can see my screen, and also you can see it in presentation mode as well.
Yes, we covered.
Okay, thank you so much. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Viola Otieno. I work with the Africa Union Commission, but I'm deployed by NORCAP, the Norwegian Capacity Building Initiative. It's an honor to be invited to give this presentation on opportunities of Earth observation in Africa, and I'm going to look at it from my perspective in terms of the work that I'm doing, and therefore highlight what are the opportunities for EO in disaster risk reduction, but specifically focusing on early warning systems. So I work for a program that's called the Africa Multi-Hazard Early Warning and Early Action System. In short, it's AMIWAS. We love abbreviations, so there will be a lot of them. So AMIWAS is a Pan-Africa continental program that was endorsed by AU Executive Council through 2 decisions. The main objective of the AMIWAS, which is a continental program, is to strengthen the capacities of member states across the African continent to develop, to utilize, and to integrate early warning systems as key tools in disaster risk reduction and also in climate change adaptation. So on the right side of the screen, I highlight some of the decisions that led to the development or establishment of the Africa Multi-Hazard Early Warning, Early Action program. So the implementation modality for AMIWAS is through the situation rooms. So situation rooms are state-of-the-art centers that are also referred to as disaster operations center. They are ideally meant to be 365, 24/7 monitoring and early warning at continental level, that's at Africa Union Commission, but also at regional are meant to communicate with each other. So we are looking at interoperability between the systems, but also coordination of DRR activities or early warning information or even emergency response across the different levels. So on the right side of the screen, I have highlighted some of where we already have the Disaster Operations Center. So one is the Africa Union Commission where I work, based in Ethiopia. We have one at Africa Center of Meteorological Applications.
Viola, are you here? I think we've lost.
Sorry, really sorry about that. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, the internet again in Addis Ababa is not the most reliable. So please apologize for that. Let me just try and see if I can finish the presentation. So I'll just try to highlight the important ones as well. So I thought I would start the conversation with, sorry, Imane, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, I thought I'd start the presentation with a brief history of disasters and just highlight some of the disasters across Africa in the year 2023 and 2024 as well. So if you look at Eastern Africa, we had the most prolonged drought from 2020 to 2023. Immediately it was followed by flooding, and then we had political unrest as well. We had landslides, cyclones, heavy rainfall. South East Africa, we actually had an ongoing drought. Like now, we had wildfires, we had heat waves, floods, cyclones, and disease outbreak, mainly cholera. In Northern Africa, we also have a drought that is multi-year as well. We have earthquake, we have flooding, we have wildfire and tropical storm as well. So earthquake was in Morocco. Then in Western Africa, almost the same as well. And then one of the cyclones that hit Southern Africa, Tropical Cyclone Freddy, was yesterday declared the longest lasting cyclone. So the result is we've had loss of lives and livelihoods, environmental degradation, biodiversity loss, but most importantly, an erosion of the developmental gains, and also resilience has been reduced as well. In terms of impacts, hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced. There's heightened food insecurity across Africa, loss of human life as well, loss of animal life, livestock and wildlife as well, infrastructure damage and land degradation as well. So the trend is that we are expecting these extreme climatic events to increase in frequency, intensity, but also in the compounding nature of, in the compounding impacts of disasters as well. In general, we're expecting a reduced coping capacity. So I just wanted to highlight what is some of the role of EO in DRR. And we have the disaster management cycle where you have the early or anticipatory action, and then you have the disaster, and then you have response, recovery, preparedness, and mitigation. But essentially, in all these phases of disaster management cycle, Earth observation can be used. And I try to highlight some of the areas. So for early warning systems, Earth observation comes in handy for monitoring, detection, and also supporting forecasting. You have risk assessment and vulnerability mapping as well. You have rapid mapping to support response to improve targeted intervention. And you can also have post-disaster damage assessment as well. So this is some of the policies that support the work we are doing, the Sendai framework at a global level, but at a continental level, we have developed an African program of action for Sendai framework as well. So I won't go into details, but I just wanted to highlight that if you look at the target G of Sendai framework, it talks about substantially increasing availability and access of multi-hazard early warning systems and disaster risk information and assessment. And that is what we are trying to address as well. So in 2022, there was this very in 5 years, so that's by 2027. So essentially, early warning systems detect and inform at-risk communities before disasters, enabling early action, hopefully saving lives and reducing the impacts of disasters. So if you're looking at covering every person on Earth, then you cannot fail to see the importance of Earth observation in that sense. One, because of its spatial coverage as a data source, and also because of the frequency of data as well, data acquisition. Earth observation remains a cornerstone in impact-based focusing because then you have numerous thematic indicators. You can use population data, you can use infrastructure information as well, and I will highlight a bit later. And then Earth observation also remains a cornerstone of early or anticipatory action, which is a new concept that is hoping to shift the paradigm from reactive disaster risk management. So instead of responding to disasters, is it possible for us to perform certain actions before the disaster to be able to mitigate the impacts of the disasters? So some of the existing early warning systems, which also Alessandra highlighted as well, we have floods monitoring and early warning systems for Africa, but also over other parts of the world. We have drought monitoring, we have cyclones and tsunami early warning systems, we have conflict monitoring and also insecurity as well. We have disease monitoring and early warning systems, fire monitoring and early warning systems, and then illegal fishing or marine monitoring and early warning systems. All to say that Earth observation finds a lot of usage across different hazards when building the early warning systems. And on the right side of the screen—
Viola, I'm sorry, you have 2 minutes left.
Okay. And on the other side, I highlight some of the data, EO data that is used in early warning systems. So what are some of the opportunities for EO in DRR? In monitoring and early warning systems, we have opportunities, analytics, data fusion and integration, software system development, machine learning for improved predictions, impact-based focusing, which is a shift from what the weather will be to what the weather will do, artificial intelligence for enhanced action-oriented advisories as well. And then I had mentioned the others. I wanted to highlight some of the early warning systems that I have worked with before. We have the East Africa Drought Watch. I was at ECPAC implementing the GMES in Africa program before I moved to Africa Union. So we have East Africa Hazards Watch, East Africa Crop Monitor, and also Africa Drought Monitoring and Advisory by Ahmed. I wanted to highlight some of the ways we actually use the Earth observation data. So what you see on your screen is the trajectory of Cyclone Hidayah, which was happening between 1st and 5th of May 2020. It made landfall on Tanzania coast, and shortly after, sorry,
I would like
shortly after the Hidayah,
to mute themselves.
Okay, thank you. So we were monitoring the cyclone starting from when it developed, and we were able to inform Tanzania's national agencies on when the cyclone was going to hit, and also an estimate of which areas are going to be impacted and also who are going to be impacted as well. Based on the information, Tanzania government was able to carry out evacuations before the cyclone hit as well. So this is one of the information updates that was issued. This was issued by ECPAC, but Africa Union also issued information note to the member states highlighting on Hidayah. The other piece of work
I'm sorry, Viola. We have actually in 10 minutes now with the time. We can also discuss more later during the. Thank you. I would also like to again ask all our audience to be on mute, so it's easier for all of us to hear the panelists. Next will be Dr. Linda Tomasini, which is a space systems expert at CNES, the French space agency, with over 25 years of experience. She holds an engineering diploma in aeronautics and space and a PhD in artificial intelligence. She has contributed to various EO missions and now leads co-development and capacity building activities. She is coordinating also the working group of Africa training programs for the Copernicus User Uptake Initiative, and serves as a board member of the International Charter on Space and Major Disasters. So please, Linda, you can share your presentation and go ahead with it. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Imane, can we record this, please, if we are not done so?
Sure. Actually, okay. I'm not the admin, so I'm not able to.
It's okay. It's a record in process. It's okay for the record.
Okay. So thank you very much, Imane, and I'm very pleased to be here with you. It's really a big honor to be invited to this panelist and this webinar. As a panelist, sorry. And so I will introduce some activities that we have at CNES regarding capacity building in Africa, and also the use of Copernicus data for sustainable development. Okay, let me first start with a brief introduction of CNES. So CNES is a French space agency since 1961. So more than 60 years now. We are around 2,400 employees and 4 centers, one in Toulouse where we are developing the orbital systems and missions and also operating the satellites. The headquarters is located in Paris, and there's also the directorate also in Paris. There's also, of course, the Space Center where most of the European satellites are being and the CNES budget per year is around 2.4 billion euros, which makes it the second in the world if we make the ratio of the budget per the inhabitants. And also 80% of this budget goes to the industry. Then here you have an overview of the different cooperation. CNES is cooperation agreements that CNES have with different entities in Africa, space agencies, and of course also an agreement with the African Union Commission. And then we have cooperation agreements with agencies in Gabon, South Africa, Ethiopia, Egypt, Morocco, Senegal. And we are also developing pilot projects making use of Copernicus data for the purpose of sustainable development. So I can quote a few of them. For instance, we have supported the development of a service aiming at detecting illegal gold mining in Ivory Coast. It was funded by the European Commission. We have supported also the development of a service aiming at monitoring the urban development in Diamniadio. So this service, it was developed by 2 startups, one Senegalese startup from Senegal and a startup in France working together on this project. We are also supporting a service aiming at monitoring deforestation in the tropical region. And we have also activities devoted to geophysical hazard monitoring. In Rwanda, for instance, we have a project aiming at monitoring landslides. And also, I can mention also a project aiming at developing a portal that's a UNESCO portal aiming at monitoring water quality. Then I would like to make a focus on one project which is being funded by the European Commission under the Copernicus User Uptake Caroline Herschel program. So you can note that this program is named after a woman, an astrophysicist, Caroline Herschel. So the purpose of this program is to train African trainers in 3 languages. So we have 3 language group, one in French, one in Portuguese, one in English. And we have also a mentoring program, including advanced training for Copernicus data processing and also co-building and co-teaching for local training sessions addressing local thematics. And the objective is to reach at the end around 300 people who will be trained to the use of Copernicus. And also, of course, the second objective is to integrate Copernicus modules in a sustainable way into local training programs. So the trainers who are following this program are originated from 16 African countries. You have the list here. So it's a joint effort from 12 institutions from 8 European countries. And this program, of course, is meant to be complementary to the GMES and Africa. So we have also a coordination with the GMES and Africa team regarding our training activities and the webinars that we are organizing to raise awareness regarding Copernicus in Africa. So we have the participation. We are very pleased to have the participation of GMES and Africa Consortia to these webinars. And also what we are trying to support is the development of a network of Copernicus relays and academies in Africa. So here you have a view of the advanced training program. This was a very long program with 10 weeks of training online. And now we have entered the second phase, which is the mentorship program, aiming at supporting the African trainers in the development and implementation of their own local training session on Copernicus. So some training sessions, as you can see on this picture, which was taken in Tanzania very recently, some of the training sessions have already taken place, and they will take place until the end of 2025. And so the objective also is to build long-term partnerships with the African entities implementing these training sessions. And now I would like to speak more about women and our activity, because what we can see is that we don't have enough women following our program, and maybe we were not paying enough attention to this point when we have started the implementation of the program. And it happens now that we have only 1 woman per language, per group. So it means that we have around 10% of women following the programs. So it's not really a result that we are proud of, but we have to think about why this situation. And I think it's an example of the fact that if there is no really willing, I would say, voluntary approach, and maybe I would say positive discrimination. Yes, I would. Okay, so we have to think about the reasons why we don't have a gender balance in our program, and maybe I will have opportunity to mention all these aspects during the discussions afterwards. But I think that a voluntary approach is needed at every step of the process. So Imane, I don't know if I stick to the 10 minutes or if I still have time or not.
Couple of minutes left. Okay. Wait, 1 minute left.
Okay, 1 minute left. So some of the assumptions that we can make about the fact that we don't have enough women in our program is that, of course, there are less women than men in the field, but I think it doesn't explain totally the situation. Also, I would say that usually men are in a higher position with greater decision-making power. Also, the recruitment process rely on relationships between managers, hence men. There's maybe a lack of incentives for women. I would say also that unfortunately women have a tendency to feel less entitled than men, and we have to fight against this. And so the conclusion is that we really need to implement a voluntary approach at every step of the process to improve the selection and the recruitment process. And we must also communicate more, and that's why the webinar today is really a very good initiative.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, to 10 minutes. We will be discussing these points more. Thank you for highlighting them during our roundtable. So now we will be moving to Dr. Jane Bimigisha, founder of ECPPS International in Uganda, with 30 years of expertise in environmental and sustainable development. She specialized in Earth observation and geoinformation technologies, leading projects like AfriForecast for food security in Africa and Surge to reduce Uganda's beef industry emission. She champions gender diversity and entrepreneurship through initiatives like We Grow and holds a PhD in natural resources management. So Jane, I would like to ask you to share your screen with your presentation and go ahead with it if you're here.
Hello, good afternoon or good evening for some countries. So my name is Jane Bimigisha, and I'll be talking about the role of women in the Africa space industry. I'll focus on knowledge for climate and food actions as topics that are arising at the institution that I lead, AeroSpace International Limited. And also I'll talk about the GECA as a research institute that is founded at AeroSpace International Limited. Thank you so much, the organizers. I will straight away go to give just an overview of what we understand as the knowledge economy. It is not something new. It has existed since the Industrial Revolution, and now that information has entered the dynamics, I will just explain it as something that is really encompassing processes of knowledge, generating, sharing, and use. And definitely looking at the people who are at the center of the use and benefit. I would like to call your attention to the perhaps known, but the central issue of women participation, locus about power. About power, looking at simple things like beliefs and perceptions, then institutional laws and policies, practices and participation, and then access to assets. Access to assets meaning including resources that may enable people participate in terms of education, in terms of work, in employment, but also in terms of investment when we come to the industry investment direction. I would briefly like to talk about the connection now between knowledge management, space, and gender, and how it is in practice at AeroSpace. And just to give a brief background, we may know that before we would have seen big institutions in the information industry like Hewlett-Packard and others paving the way for information for the information age growth. However, we also note that since the launch of the first human-made Earth satellite, Sputnik, humanity got engrossed in space exploration. However, today I will focus only on the interest in satellite-derived geospatial knowledge in solving societal problems. featuring only climate change and food security. And then definitely there are equitable participation issues that arise. This is where ASIPS International Limited, as a private company operating in Uganda, Africa, comes in, and with a hosted gender, climate change and agriculture in Africa, what we call the institute now, is founded to offer services and products in. On my right, you will see the key areas of ASIPS International Limited services, service areas, and we span data surveying, research and information, and go straight to dissemination, but there are many applications that arise out of that, including environmental planning and also environmental policy, where ASIPS emphasizes an interface right now. And below, you will see the think tank on gender, climate change, and agriculture in Africa, featuring as a joining link. There are various geospatial services offered at ASIPS, but I'll just highlight a few. One being applications in range and monitoring and early warning. This is relatively under GMES phase 1, implemented under ICPAC, and then the wetlands vulnerability analysis application, also gratefully, and GMES phase 1 and 2 are now demonstrating what we call space to action in the area. Then geomapping for haymaking came earlier actually. It was under NASA USAID surveying program by RCMRD, but now also Imane has mentioned the CERD project, which includes applications of intelligence and modeling to integrate pasture condition maps, indices, and livestock density in determining carrying capacity. And this is an EU acted implemented program. For all these programs and projects, we are emphasizing briefing at policy level so that action may be realized, and also that there may be influence of technologies on the actions at government level. Now, what we call the CERD project is the strengthening the innovation system for greenhouse gas emission estimation in the livestock sector in Uganda. And this is a tool just completed for the government of Uganda, the Ministry of Water and Environment, and then the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, focusing on greenhouse gas inventory database development using the IPCC Tier 2 approach, but also integrating the artificial intelligence and geoinformation data, as I have mentioned before. And definitely then policy briefs have been part of the work that we do to enhance dairy and beef productivity through low carbon intensity pathways. So these are pathways that are advise governments on alternatives to reach a low carbon intensity situation in Uganda. I'll talk briefly about the food security implications, and this is through the Afri-focused project. This is an Earth observation Africa Explorers, or what we call Expro Plus, and it is a project that is targeting food security and safety in Africa, and commissioned under European Space Agency. We work through AgroApps, a Greece company, and we aim to leverage Earth observation data to enhance food security and safety across the continent. For ASIPS International, it has been a responsibility to collect data, use it on growth.
I apologize, Jane. Can you please, the audience, could you please be on mute so we can hear better our speaker, please?
Thank you so much for that. And the data collected will be crucial for development of the AfriFocus system, which is likely to involve the use of satellite imagery going forward, and to see that there is continuous group monitoring in terms of prediction and food security risk assessment. AfriFocus provides scientific and technical support, food security and safety policies in Africa, and ultimately it's for climate change impact analysis. Then AfriFocus has also purpose to develop a modeling platform, making full exploitation of satellite remote sensing. And these are mainly sensors, Prisma and EcoStress for climate change.
Jane, you have less than 1 minute.
Yes, then I'll be finishing right now about the crop growth model that is based on the field data that has been collected. On the right side, you can see the field parts of the work, and that all this data is meant to help on modeling basically. And then to go to GECA, which is now the gender aspect in all this that I have spoken, it is that we aim to generate, disseminate, and support the use of information, knowledge, and data on gender, climate change, and agriculture nexus. And that
Jane, I'm so sorry. We have to move forward with our next speaker. We can discuss more this during the roundtable. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And now we will be moving to our next speaker, which is Valerie Barthe, which is the head of customer relations at BRICS by AeroSpace Valley, focusing on skills development and training. With a background in international development and production management, she has extensive experience in creating tailored training programs across several countries. Valerie divides her time between BRICS by AeroSpace Valley and the Space Command, where she helps develop training sessions. So, Valerie, you can go ahead with your presentation. Thank you. You are on mute, in case.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yes, it's okay then.
Okay, I'm trying to have the presentation because I do not have with me. I don't know why. Let's move to. Let's. Okay. Hello to everybody. Thank you for the invitation. I really be happy to be there and present AeroSpace Valley and BRICS departments. So I will present you what is AeroSpace Valley, and at the end of the presentation, give you some example of what we did in terms of training for Africa. Okay, so we are based in France, it's south of France, in Toulouse. Where AeroSpace Valley is innovation clusters dedicated to federate and foster the French economical system in space aeronautic. We work in region Occitanie and Nouvelle-Aquitaine. So our mission is to drive the aeronautic, space, and UAV sectors. We support innovation and try to develop scientific, technological, and industrial excellence with the goals of the territorial authorities in France and Europe. We drive the sectors taking into account the twin translation, sustainable development, and digital. So aerospace industry, you might know that is concentrated in France, in southwest of France. When we gather plans of space industry, in terms of employees, AeroSpace Valley is around 60 people, and we are located in Bordeaux, Toulouse, Bayonne, Montpellier, close to our members. For our members, we've got the presence of such big groups such as Safran, Dassault Aviation, Airbus, and this is really crucial in order to create and to understand the needs of the ecosystem, to define the strategic roadmap, and support the SMEs, startup in a win-win relation. So we've got an organization represented by the three strategic sectors, that is space, aeronautics, and UAVs. So in Aerospace Valley, we've got some more than 800 members coming from the big groups, but they've got as well from SMEs, from university, for research centers. So we've got three main missions, if we can say. The first one is to lead the community. So over more than 800 members and 10,000 contacts made up of large groups, SMEs, startup, research lab, institution, and university. We try to ease communication with the aim of creating technological partnerships, joint innovations, and business. So the second mission is to innovate. Innovation is the historical mission at the creation of the competitiveness cluster in France. So we support from project emergence to fundraising through different action, ideation events, for example, creation and development of hackathon. We organize some thematic events where people can meet and communicate between them, exchange on innovation, on market, on shared projects, and we try to ease partnership from the ideation, incubation to acceleration and public-private financing. And finally, our third mission is to contribute to the growth of the cluster with the visit of the company members to advise them on industrial performance, digital transition, environmental transition, and so on. So this is the main mission and what is Aerospace Valley. Inside of Aerospace Valley, so there is a department called BRICS, and BRICS is dedicated to training engineering. The purpose is to support the customers, international customers of French industry in their competencies developments. So we are providing different kind of trainings. We've got some training on shelves with some catalog dedicated to aeronautic and space topic. We propose as well a list of masters, advanced masters, and PhD that are implemented in our region. But our specificity is really to the tailor-made training. Are able to design and implement some specific training courses. So the specificity of BRICS is what? Is that we are not a training center. We do not have some trainers. What we are doing, we are designing the programs, and when trying to find the right modules to match with the request of the customers. And after that, we are looking for the best expertise in the industry or in the academy. And we are implementing some trainings abroad or in France. Some example of some trainings we developed on behalf of CNES or the agency. This one is the Caroline Hercher program. So we organize some one-day training in order to explain the possibility of Copernicus data to boost entrepreneurship and to favor the ideation. So in this kind of training, we bring some experts. Here we have some experts from Aerospace Valley, Globeo, Visioterra, and so on. It was in Gabon. Another examples, we have been selected by a program, a French program called France 2030, in order to identify, set up a skill diagnosis in the field of aeronautic and space. And today, we supporting some countries in order to set up by themselves this skill diagnosis. The objective of search is to analyze the existing competencies in the country, to align the competence and the capacity building strategy with the strategy roadmap, and to do a recommendation for national actors. The point is to say, okay, what kind of competencies you have today? What kind of things do you have to match this need of competencies? What are the competencies of tomorrow? And to try to have a strategy around this. So these it's a kind of action that we are developing more and more, and especially with Africa. We've got some program as well. It's a 10 days program that we implement in France, but we can do abroad. And this one, the purpose is to give an overview of the satellite market and the satellite engineering. So coming back of the value chain of the satellite, of the space field, coming back of the market. After that, we try to analyze what are the different missions, how you can reply to this mission with satellite, Earth observation satellite, telecommunication, localization, and we explain a little bit the systems, the launchers as well, and finishing with program organization and new space. So this kind of induction program are dedicated for all newcomers or people who are coming in order to follow the manufacturing of satellites. This is a lot of examples. So to sum up what we can do, but our purpose is to try to support your organization and to try to define together a definition of the content of your program, training program. We can organize customized program. Alors, we are more dedicated to set up some program, some trainers for trainers program. The purpose is not to bring to Africa some program already set up in France, but to co-design program together and to match experts from Europe, but as well from all the African continents. So we developed by the past, and we can develop a curricula or some module dedicated on a topic that you are looking for. Okay, coming back to examples.
Maybe you still have 1 minute, please.
Okay, I finish with 2 examples. So this one is we are working currently to the Rwanda, trying to give them transfer methodology for the skill diagnosis. We work in the last months. It was Adeline, my colleague, who did this with a matchmaking mission from between France and Senegal, with the objective to develop cooperation and partnership between France and Senegal. It was implemented in October and in May in Toulouse last May. And finally, we work since years with Angola, supporting Airbus Infant Defense and Space in the implementation of a pool of engineers. So we train more than 10 people in Angola, and we continue to work with them. We've got several other axes cooperation. That's all for me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. You stick to 10 minutes sharp.
Okay.
So we will be discussing it more during our roundtable as well. Now, last but not least, we will have Judith Delany, which is the CEO and co-founder of Perihelion, specializing in the space sector communications and the founding member of the Space Communication Alliance. With a background in media and space law, she helps stakeholders expand their reach and make the space industry more accessible. Additionally, Judith leads the Austrian network of Women in Aerospace Europe, promoting diversity and excellence in the European space sector. So, Judith, the floor is yours, and you can share your.
Hello. Thank you, Man, for this really nice introduction as well. Let me share my screen. If it does, yes, there it is. Okay, can you let me know if you can see my screen?
We do.
Yes, okay. Again, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here today with a lineup of such incredible other female speakers. And let's be honest, this is a rare treat in our industry to have a panel or a roundtable that really only consists of women. And that kind of brings me to my topic today already. Is there really space for women in space? We just heard about some amazing projects and initiatives in Earth observation, about all the work that's being done in Africa and in Europe. And besides using Earth observation, the one thing they all have in common is that they wouldn't have been possible without women. We do know that women play an absolute integral part in the exploration and utilization in space. And we all know, at least I hope you all know, that diverse teams are the only way for sustainable and successful business growth and development in space and beyond. Let me give you some examples. A McKinsey report from 2015 that looked into 366 public companies, and the companies that ranked in the top 25% for racial and ethnic diversity were 35% more likely to have returns above industry mean. And a global analysis of 2,400 companies, which was held by Credit Suisse, showed clearly that organizations with at least one female board member, so only one, yielded significant higher returns on equity and higher net income growth than those who did not have any female board members. And additionally, studies have found that diverse teams, so diverse in gender, ethnicity, and educational background, simply made smarter decisions. They were more innovative and had more sustainable business growth. I don't have the time to go into more details, but I'm absolutely happy to supply the sources to anyone who's interested. I can just copy them in the chat at the end of my presentation, or you'll reach out via the email address that you will see on the last slide. So we know all this. We know diverse teams make better progress, are more innovative, and yet, even though that's just a fact, women in the aeronautics, defense, and space sector face discrimination and unequal treatment simply because they're women. So let's take a closer look. I've put together some of the key findings for you from the survey Union of Equality, EU Defense, Aeronautics and Space Sectors, that was conducted by the Director General for Defense Industry and Space of the European Commission in 2022. The full report has over 320 pages. I'll spare you those because you don't have the time, but obviously I recommend you take a look. It's free for download, and I can really recommend all the information that you can gather in that. So for now, let's go through some of the results together that show you what the reality for women in the European space sector looks like at the moment. Again, the results that you see here are of surveyed people. So there's obviously a little bit of a margin that changes, and also surveyed people were male and female. However, of all surveyed people, 53.4% disclosed having been victims at least once. That's more than half. And 63.8% affirmed that nothing changed since they experienced this discrimination, and that their unfair and unequal treatment still occurred in their workplace. It also showed that women are 2 times more likely to experience discrimination and unequal treatment than men, 73% respectively to 32%. Also, 45.7% of the respondents to the survey who claimed to have been discriminated against pointed at someone from management, meaning we see a clear structure of abuse of power, which we saw earlier actually in my dear co-panelist Linda's presentation, a lot of the times also men. Then 90% of the surveyed women, really look at this number, 90% of the surveyed women were discriminated against because of their gender. 90%. And this is just always a number that just gets me. And 23.1% said they would not feel comfortable reporting discrimination, and 20.9% would not take action because they fear reputational damage or perceive it as useless. Just sit with these numbers for a minute. Just listen to these numbers. I think we can all agree they're pretty shameful. They're really a sorry state of affairs. But unfortunately, this is not unusual for male-dominated industry, and this is not just Europe. You know, space is male-dominated everywhere. So what about the space sector in Africa? Now, I want to be quite clear. I don't claim to be an expert of the state of gender equality in the African space sector. I have worked with clients in different areas of Africa, different countries, but I'm also not an active part of the African space sector. However, considering I've also haven't seen, a survey like this, I can't give you exact numbers, but I want to share one very particular experience with you that I think is very interesting to everyone here today. It does make you think. So just a few months back, we had an incredible first ever networking event between Women in Aerospace Europe, Women in Aerospace Nigeria, specifically the NICOMCEP chapter, and SJSC Africa. It was a digital networking lunch. It's the first of hopefully many to come that looks to connect women from both continents with each other. I had the absolute honor to co-organize and co-host this event together with the wonderful Florence Ibrahim of Nikamsat. So this event brought together professionals of all levels, so really just starting out students to seasoned professionals. And we used this event to obviously share our experiences, to share what we're doing, our projects, our careers, but also to share our struggles that we were facing as women in space. And guess what? It didn't actually matter on which level of career and which position our participants held. And it didn't matter where they were from, no matter where they were from in Europe, no matter where they were from in Africa. We literally all reported the same struggles. We literally all had the same issues, African and European professionals alike. So now this, let's call it data, for the lack of a better word, is of course purely anecdotal. This is one event. This is one instant where we really shared what is going on, but I am pretty sure that if we would conduct a similar survey than we did with the EU Commission, that there would be probably a fairly similar outcome on the African space sector. Because, you know, we hear the same stories everywhere. So what can we do to change this? Yes, I think we agree we need change on a policy level. We need to have outreach efforts to change the status quo, and we need to have regulations and initiatives that really help us change the entire situation. But again, earlier, I really liked that word. We heard we need a voluntary approach and voluntary activism, basically, to change our situations. So let me end my presentation today with 6 things that everyone can do to change their situation in their immediate work environment, in the direct work environment, to help us make an impact. Because often, again, this is just from my work that I experience in outreach and also in Women in Aerospace Europe, when people share their stories, they often feel helpless. They don't even know where to start. And these might be solutions that sound obvious, but sometimes even the obvious bears repeating, just to keep in mind that we're not helpless and powerless. So these are 6 things you can do to change your situation. Number 1 is be gracious with trusted contacts. What do I mean? Well, this is something that I really want to ask more established professionals to do. Help young female professionals to succeed by supporting their networking efforts, by introducing them not just to contacts that can help them get ahead, but that you know for sure are safe and supportive of women. Space should be inclusive, and the easiest way to increase female participation is by helping women get ahead in their careers in a safe way. Don't make them earn your contacts. Don't make them earn your support. Just support them in a safe way. The second is be a mentor or find a mentor.
Less than 1 minute.
I get this through this. Again, self-explanatory, but young professionals are often too shy to ask for help. And some other professionals are not. Oh, I'm offering. Then the third thing, share your experiences openly with each other. If you face discrimination and are too scared to report, at least share with colleagues, with like-minded people, and you will see, unfortunately, you won't be alone. Find a safe space. I can recommend Women in Aerospace. And mention each other in a room full of safe opportunities. This again comes women supporting women. Your career won't suffer if you help another woman, even though people always tell you you're supposed to be lucky if you broke through the glass ceiling and that you need to defend your space in a room full of men. It's not true. And my last point, so I'll always make it to 1 minute, and this is the really important one: unlearn stereotypical thinking, because we all grow up with unconscious biases. And I want to give you one example that is very prevalent and pretty much an issue at the moment, and it comes to AI. Voice assistants that help us, that take our mental load, that do care work, are normally female. These are female voices like Alexa, like Siri, like car navigation systems. But voice assistants that give us instructions, safety warnings, or teachers are often male. So the result that we see at the moment is that little boys and girls learn to shout commands at female voices, at women, and get experience and help and actually learn something from men. This is just from voice assistant. And this is, again, a study that is called, I would blush if I could, by the UN, that I'm also happy to share with you, that shows that this has a negative impact on how women or girls perceive the capability in STEM and technology, and how men perceive the capability of women. So unlearn your stereotypes, question what you think is true, and if you could do better. And with this, I just want to say thank you for your attention and for inviting me today.
Thank you, Judith. So now we came to the second part of our webinar, which is the roundtable. So I will ask all our panelists to put on their cameras if they can, so we can start our roundtable. Yeah, and also unmute yourselves, of course. I'm just still lacking Viola and Judith.
I'm here.
Sorry, not Judith, Jane. Sorry. Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for all the amazing presentations and for raising awareness about either the state of women in Africa and in Europe or in the industry in general, and also highlighting some very interesting projects in which women can have impact either in Europe and also that are having impact in Europe and in Africa. Speaking of that, my first question will be to Jane. In which I will be asking her to highlight any successful projects or case studies where women's innovation had a significant impact on the space industry in Africa.
Thank you so much, Imane. I wouldn't like to go so far away from the GMES and Africa program that GMES and Africa program offered opportunity for various implementations in the natural resources sector, and their impacts that we can see in the area now after implementation of phase 1, where I can cite wetlands vulnerability analysis tool developed for Eastern Africa, also SASCAO in South Africa developing a tool for wetlands monitoring for South African landscapes. I think that these tools that have been developed for wetlands monitoring are areas that we can see now. I had started to mention that for the Eastern Africa move is being taken to have impacts or results from the analysis going to support action planning on the ground. So right now in the Eastern Africa region, we are implementing what we call wetlands action planning by communities and using the results from the wetlands vulnerability analysis, which is highly technical. So I can cite that area. I can also cite what my colleague Viola has mentioned about rangelands monitoring, looking at drought monitoring tool developed by my colleague who is present here, Tinebeb Johannes, and also in collaboration with ICPA. These are tools that have helped to future what we would call application for rangeland users on the ground. It is also a pleasure now to introduce what we call the GECA again. I said GECA is Agenda in Climate Change and Agriculture in Africa platform, and a platform that is operating like a think tank. I would like to applaud the women behind. It's not myself who is the chair, but there is a team of women from Africa in now about more than 10 countries, contributing knowledge, contributing tools, and also advancing the inclusivity aspect in the analysis of our resources across Africa to respond to climate change and agriculture specifically. There is more, but I can give people or my other colleagues opportunity to talk as well. Thank you so
much, Jane. My coming question will be for Viola, and it is as she's representing African Union Commission here and also GMES in Africa. How can the African Union support better the integration of women in the space sector? This is my first question, and the second one is, how could we, as you are also working on a continental level, make the partnership between our countries in Africa foster more inclusivity for women in the innovative domains?
Thank you so much, Imane. Maybe to start with the first question, I have to mention that African Union has a gender and the Women, Gender and Youth Directorate that works at a continental level to develop policies that promote gender inclusion, but also women empowerment as well. But more specifically to space, I would like to applaud the efforts of GMES in Africa. In the design of the program itself, GMES in Africa leadership made sure that it was a requirement for any implementing partner to consider 30% women participation in terms of activities, but also in the recruitment as well. The experience so far is that it has not been possible to achieve this. And I think that supports the submission that has been made before. So when you look at the recruitment or you look at the staffing, it's not 30%. But even when you look at the training as well, so if you have a training, as highlighted before, you don't get 30% as well. So I think some of the things that African Union Commission can do, and which it has been doing as well, is capacity building to develop scientific skills, but also technical skills as well. And by doing this, I believe that you will be able to create a critical mass so that when you're looking for 30%, you're able to actually get a 30% from the people that apply. I'll give also an experience when it comes to my work within GMES at ECPAC as well. On several occasions, we advertise positions and we would get women application, but it will only be maybe 2 out of 30. And even the 2 that applied, when you look at the skills as well, they will not be as good, I would say. So ideally, we still need to build the capacity of women as well. Even as we want to promote and ask for gender equality, we need also to build the capacity of women as well. I think the other one will be networking and partnerships. For example, this particular webinar we are on, we have women from Europe, we have women from Africa that are coming together and sharing their experiences. But I think we should go beyond that as well to promote networking and strategic partnerships as well. So I would really love it to see if we have partnerships that are coming out of this particular webinar. Judith, you mentioned a study that was done in collaboration with European Union. And I remember during the first year of women in GMES, we were also thinking about doing a similar study just to establish the baseline. Where are we in Africa when we talk about women in space and related field as well? So I think those would be my submissions, Imane, also considering the time as well. But thank you so much for the opportunity. Over.
Thank you, Viola, for making this next question very smooth for me, which will be for Alessandra, and it will be about what are the additional areas of cooperation that can be explored between both continents. And I would also like to ask you more specifically about the partnership between educational institutions, research institutions, or universities, and space organizations, and how can we strengthen them to provide more opportunities for women, either in Africa or in Europe or both?
Thank you, Imane. That's very, very, very pertinent. I mean, I mentioned that we have existing cooperation actions, right? We have several. I've been, for instance, I've been asking to some colleagues after being invited if they had the material that they or ideas that they could share in relationship with women in Africa. I got much material with respect to Africa. As I showed, that there are several initiatives that are already ongoing, but there was little material specifically on women. The other thing I thought, then I contacted some colleagues who I know are involved in actions specifically for women, because as was also reported by Judith, there are issues in the presence of women in space, even in Europe, and there are many initiatives like Women in Copernicus and many, and even in ESA itself, I have some colleagues. We have set up a Space Girls initiative, and we try to sensitize different audiences, simply maybe proposing feminine work models. So I think perhaps we could share the experiences between all these networks that already exist, that and I understand that there are several in different locations. So I'm declare readiness to share with the organizers of this Space Girls initiative and see also the success rate that they obtained. And also, this is maybe also related to your second question. I must say that this network is very much focused on education, because, and I quote from Judith, the key is to unlearn stereotypical thinking. I like the expression, and I think it's very important. So we need to start from education also, as and also Viola said that we need to build the women capacity, and we need to start with girls studying STEMs and so on and so forth. So I think we need to build this capacity with women, and ESA is well placed there because we have a specific mission on educating both boys and girls on STEM. And we have several initiatives. And there I also contacted my colleagues in charge of education and to see if they could propose some specific projects. And they reported about a project which is relatively recent. It's the climate detectives. And there they had quite a range of success. It's not specifically for girls, but it aims as sensitizing the youngsters from 12 to 19 to projects related to climate and get familiar with EO data and with measurements. And I think given the challenges represented by climate change and drought and all these challenges, this can be really a nice platform to train and educate the young people to science. And there as well, I can bring the availability from my colleague in charge of the program to exchange ideas, propose what they have done. There is much material which is available online in all the European languages, which can also be helpful for non-English speakers. And so maybe we should organize another webinar.
Yes. We'll be very happy to host another webinar on that. Alessandra, thank you so much for the proposition. So this gets me, of course, if you still have any other thing to add, do you have anything else to add, Alessandra, or should I go? Go ahead.
No, I hope that this answered to your questions.
It did.
It's really availability from the agency and from myself personally to discuss further opportunities.
It did. Thank you so much. So speaking of agencies, my next question will be to Linda, that has been also working with many African agencies. So on your own experience, how do those projects manage that you are managing actually foster better partnerships between governments in the sector? And what would be your advice to the women here, or the women in general in Africa, to overcome the barriers that you might have maybe noticed during your partnerships, and to encourage them to pursue more careers in this field?
Okay, thank you, Imane, for these questions. So regarding your first questions and the project that CNES is implementing, so what we really try to implement is a co-development approach, and in the projects there must be a capacity development also component to also make a technology transfer. But the co-development approach, it means also that both partners from Europe and Africa, they have expertise to share on their in their own domain, in their domain, respective domain, sorry. And so the knowledge about the local context is detailed by the African partner. The knowledge about I would say the European technologies, because usually the European technology and the Copernicus program is at the heart of the projects that we are supporting. And I would say that an important also aspect of this technology is that it is open and free, and the Copernicus is a game changer in the world of Earth observation, because it offers open, full, and free data, and it's really an important asset to support co-development approach and partnerships. Regarding your second question, it's a difficult question, because I would talk about my experience. I was really supported as a girl by my parents in my studies to become an engineer, and they had decided, I guess, from my childhood that I would become an engineer. But I was not aware really of all the barriers that I would have to face during my career. And maybe the first barrier, and it's a bit strange, because I was really raised by my parents in a spirit that I could have a job like a man, but the sentiment, the feeling of legitimacy is not always obvious, and we really have to fight against I would say, like inner feeling about this. And I would say also there are many other barriers regarding stereotypes, as Judith has mentioned, unfortunately, and also the burden which relies on women's shoulders regarding the family care, household care. Unfortunately, there has not been any progress in that field, at least in France, I would say. And when we are designing the project, we have to take all this into account. And I would say, for instance, that one thing that we have not anticipated regarding the training programs that we have developed is that it has required over availability of the trainees, and it's not always compatible with all the duties that the women have to face in their world. And now I can say that, because now that my children, so I speak a lot about myself, but I guess my experience can be inspiring. And now that my children have left home and are grown up and so on, I can really see what it's the challenge that it has been to manage a professional career, and also the family care. So we have to, as employers, and we have to really find a way to facilitate the life of women at work. And also, I would say that implement positive discrimination. I think this is the only solution to have like a disruption and have more women having higher positions and being really empowered in the field. So thank you, Imane.
Yeah, thank you so much for it. It's very important as well for the audience to hear our own experiences. Sometimes it makes it easier for us to relate. So thank you so much for sharing your own experience. My incoming question will be for Valerie, and it will be on the trainings that AeroSpace Valley and the projects in general that AeroSpace Valley is having on Africa. So my first one, it will be, what are the lessons learned? Because of course it's a shared expertise between both continents. What are the lessons learned from the projects that you had carried in Africa? And how did this projects strengthen the partnerships between both continents? And the second part will be how such programs on your own view, can foster more inclusion of the women in the aerospace sector in general?
Thank you, Imane, for the questions. Several answers. As I explained to you, we are working on behalf of a lot of industry. So unfortunately, we do not have the chance to choose the candidates and the people we are with who we are working in terms of training. What we are facing more and more is true, and what we are trying to do during our training with a lot of countries and even with Africa is tries to ease the stay of the people when they are coming to study in France. Because it's true, as it has been mentioned, we've got some women who arrive with some kids, and they have to follow some master's degree. They have to take care about the kids in the afternoon or in the evening, and they have as well to continue to work for their employers in the country. So we've got a lot of women, especially coming supporting them in this and to make them successful and to have the master and coming back in the country. Coming back to the place of the woman in the training, I guess that this is what can say on our side is when we work with Africa, it's not because we are speaking with African people. Women in Africa are very strong. So they are unfortunately able to manage both situations. I say unfortunately because the environment is not there to ease their study and their employment. I guess now on our side, what we are trying to do since several years is to add in our contract some regulation asking to have some women in the batch of the train. And this is not so easy, but if we add this in the contract and if we think about this before to start a training, to move at least to change the situation. Coming back to what was your other questions for the partnerships?
Yes, it was about how the projects you had with the African countries. Yeah, were the partners between continents.
I hope it is partnership with the continents. I'm quite sure that because since 2 years we're increasing a lot the cooperation with Africa. Our strong willing is to position ourselves as a co-designer of training. We do not design something from friends. For training for us is to give tools to someone to grow. So it's not possible to bring something from France and say, okay, we bring this in Africa and this is the good things, you will be sure follow this. So really we are trying to, and it's not some words, it's really what we are trying to keep attention to exchange with our customers and to be sure that the knowledge we will be share is matching with the request of the country and not with our willing. And we are trying all the time to be in a win-win situation and to have the same amount of African experts. If we experts in Africa, why do not use experts in Africa and move them to Europe? So we are trying to be in this kind of relationships. It's more in the win-win situation, and we can say that this is partnership with the country.
Thank you so much for your insight, Valerie. It's quite important to highlight the fact that experts in both continents will be useful for both continents either way. So it's a win-win situation, as you said. And my last question will be to Judith. And my question to you will be especially about foreign women, and especially when are harassed or discriminated. So for you, as you have expertise and you had many conversations with so many women, women in aerospace and your clients, where can I, as a woman, turn when I feel like I need a neutral support, if I feel discriminated or harassed in the space sector? And where and how can I find sometimes it's very, very challenging. I talk about my personal experience. Sometimes it's challenging to trust anyone with my feelings, how I feel, how I was treated. Is it only on my head? Sometimes this is the questions that we ask. Am I overreacting? Sometimes these are the questions. So my questions to the thoughts. So my questions to you is, where can I find mentorship, and how can I find support?
Yes. Thank you so much for those questions. Really happy to answer those. First of all, how you can find support. I do want to really stretch the importance of safe spaces. Of if you have the possibility to join a networking group like Women in Aerospace Europe, like Women in Aerospace Nigeria, or start one, do it. Really do it. We just had a brunch here with our regional chapter, Austria, with the European chapter of flight safe test engineers. And you had so many high-level professionals where you look at them and you go, look, oh my God, these women are so strong, so amazing. I wish I could be like them. And then you start talking, and they had the same experiences. They had the same experiences of feeling like, and this is, there might be some mothers here, so they should be very well trained, that talking to their boss was like talking to their toddler when you needed to regulate their feelings. Just because if you were too direct, you might upset them, and then you're being so really difficult. So even those high-level professionals you would never think of had the same experience. So being open with your experiences in a safe space, in a female empowering organization is something that just really helps you not feel alone, not realizing it's not in your head. It's just unfortunately a reality. I obviously don't wish on anyone ever to feel harassed, discriminated, or have any kind of situation of abuse on their workplace, but we all know it happens. I do want to give you one resource that was founded by 3 incredible women on a voluntary basis called Astro Advocates and Allies. They started in the US. You will find them on Facebook. You will, again, you're welcome to reach out to me and I can put you in contact if you do need them, because of the issues of sexual harassment that happened, for example, at the NASA press sites and other companies, big companies in the US. And they have supported women that have faced those issues up to actually also joining them when they did go to court or when they did actually report the harasser. And they have an excellent network as well, so they might be able to help you find someone in your region, in your area, that can support you. Because we all know that it can be really, really scary to report to your employer, even if there is a system in place, because these are the people that they're your meal ticket, you know, and then reporting to them is very difficult sometimes. So an outside and neutral voice can help. And I really, again, recommend look up Astro Advocates and Allies. And I'd also invite you, if you need another contact, another source, to reach out. And we are talking about where can you find mentorship. You obviously have official programs like the Space for Women program by UNOSA that is publishing their new rounds of mentors at the end of this year, of Q4 of 2024. There's no currently ones, and there's other mentorship programs that you can just easily find. But again, what I had in the presentation, and what we also, I think, Linda, it was you who mentioned it, that we often are a little bit more insecure about our own skills, and then maybe be hesitant if we could be mentors ourselves, because unfortunately, the imposter phenomenon, more likely in women than men, again, just because of how we were raised. So we might not think we have that much to give, but I always believe like you do, everyone does. And the easiest thing we can do to maybe find a mentor or to build a support network, because I see that some people are introducing themselves in the chat, is that I'd like to invite everyone to actually copy their LinkedIn profile links into the chat. so we can stay in contact. And so you can ask later, and you can also ask maybe the people in this room, who could I reach out to? Do you have someone in your network that could help me with this specific problem? Again, I want to give a personal experience here. Before working in space for 10 years, I worked in journalism and media communications because I didn't know that as a non-STEM person, I couldn't work in space. That message hadn't reached me at all because I thought STEM is the only way I could work here. And when I found out I could work in space, when I did do my degree in international relations and space and with a focus on space law, and realized space law communications, there's a space for me there. I literally just went to an open house at like an open public event at the United Nations here in Vienna, said, I need to find a space lawyer. And then asked, hey, you're a space lawyer, can I learn from you? This is the way I started in the industry. I literally just was like, what do I have to lose? I can just ask. And if, again, this woman, if she says no, okay, then I'll ask someone else. I haven't lost anything. And I think this is just the one thing, even if you're insecure, if you feel like, do I have something to give? Should I really ask? They can only say no. You know, then you're at the same spot. You're literally not losing anything. A no is not a loss. A no is not just a change of, not a change of the situation. So sometimes being cheeky and just asking is the way forward. So I will go ahead and do post my LinkedIn contact here in the chat and invite you to the same and invite you to connect, because we talk about supporting women in the space sector more and building stronger networks and staying in touch after an amazing webinar like this. Congratulations, Imane, on hosting it so beautifully, by the way, is a good way forward, in my opinion.
Thank you so much, Judith, for these amazing words. And now it's now we will have the words to conclude our session. And yes, please, let's connect, let's network, let's keep this going, let's keep this momentum. It's very important for both continents. Me being in a part of, I'm African diaspora in Europe, working in the space industry. I have faced so many of those challenges, but also I've seen so many incredible, talented women that had helped me actually go very, very further than I would have ever imagined. So it's very important to network either at work or in such events. So now I will let the floor to Wafa for the closing word. So please go ahead. And thank you so much for bringing together all these amazing women. Once again, Wafa.
Thank you so much, Imane. I'm Wafa Karim, engineer in Mountain Team. I'm diaspora African, Moroccan. Thank you all for your presence and your excellent presentations. Thank you for commitment to women, GMES, and Africa. What you bring to the promotion of satellite data and education is essential for Africa's young population. We appreciate your work in the field to help women manage their daily lives, skills, etc. Thank you, Alessandra. Grazie mille. Grazie mille per questo momento con noi. Merci beaucoup pour Valerie and Judith. You are cordially invited to our next Women in GMES and Africa meeting. This meeting was an opportunity to get to know two women most involved in the Earth observation and to Copernicus program, its tools, data, geoservices, and services. Thank you very much for moderating this extraordinary meeting, Imane. Excellent work, like always. Let's continue to work together to build bridges between our communities and inspire a positive change. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wafa. And I also would like to, before giving the very last word, of course, to Teoro Nyang, I would like to also thank each one of the panelists, Linda, Alessandra, Jane, Viola, Valerie, and Judith for the amazing presentations and for being very, very much how can I say, generous with the presentation itself and with your time, because it takes time, and to try to do your best to be here today and to prepare yourselves and to be there to ask questions and for the information that you have shared and the amazing projects and opportunities that you're presenting. We'll for sure stay in touch. I'm an email away, as I always say, to maybe see what we can do with such webinars and such. We just started the conversation, right? So for me, at least, we just started. So I think that we'll have much more things to do together, either like with the women in general in both continents, or with the projects in Earth observation and more, because the space industry. I come from the space industry. I worked on Earth observation and other domains in telecommunications. So for me, it's the space industry in general. And now I will let the floor to Teoro. If you have anything to add, please go ahead right now.
Yes, Imane. Good morning, all colleagues. Very happy to be here. Thank you very much for all colleagues. It will be thank you very much for this very special webinar. I'm very happy. The presentation is very high quality, and it will be very, very interesting to be part of this webinar. Thank you for all my African colleagues, Viola and Jan. Thank you also for European colleagues. It will be very nice. Let's go to work together, and it will be very interesting to see how we can involve more women and to work together in order to have more opportunity more opportunity for African women. Thank you, Imane, for the moderation, and special thanks to Wafa for the lead of this activity. For the lead of this activity, it will be very good. Over.
Thank you, Teoro. And one last thing before going. I would also like to extend my sincere and my deepest thanks to the African Union, especially to Dr. Bashir, and the opportunity that he has gave us and helped us to have such webinar. And now we're looking forward to webinar number 4. I hope it will be soon. Where I would like to maybe see again those same faces and new faces, or at least just to have the same conversation around the same table. And now I think we can call it a day and get back to our lives, but let's keep the synergy once again. I like to highlight this every time. And thank you so much, and have a nice rest of the week.
Thank you, Imane.
Thank you so much, Imane.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao.